Hey, beautiful souls. I haven't done a solo cast actually on video too, so I thought I would take the time today to do that and reach out and see you. You can see me, we can interact a little bit differently. I actually had a podcast interview scheduled with somebody who ran into some problems this morning and wasn't able to record. And I thought I would take, like I said, the opportunity to do this, which is really the great intention of the everyday mystic, is to connect with a community of people who are interested in talking about these subjects. That's why I created the podcast, because I love talking about these subjects. So a little bit of a selfish uh, bit of instigation or initiation, but I also believe that these conversations are important for us as humans to have. Most of us weren't raised in a an environment with a family or a society that talked freely about spirituality. Now, maybe you had a very strict or loose religious upbringing, and there's certainly spirituality baked into that. But for most people I know that grew up in a religious environment, they didn't feel that sense of their own spirituality, their own connection to God. And mysticism is about that direct connection, your direct experience with God, source, the one, the oneness, with the energy of all that is, with source consciousness, whatever we want to call it. Our direct connection and experience with that is how all the great mystics have operated in throughout history. And I believe that we, as modern day people, as everyday mystics, we can have that same divine connection, that we can do things daily in our everyday life, but also start to change our mindset and our look or our impression or our uh, understanding and what our current reality is of everyday life, to see that the divine is part of it all, that we as divine are here to live a very different life than what we may have been raised to think we were living. That life of where we are pursuing recognition, we're pursuing great wealth, or we're pursuing feeling okay in the world. I mean, it might not be that we have our sights set very high, but wherever we've set our sights, typically those sights are out there. They are external to us and our inner self, that inner self that we can call soul, or we can call the highest self, or we can call that oneness or divinity within. Again, whatever we want to call it, our connection to that self is the divine connection. It is what then threads us to the universe, the oneness, God, that energy of all that is. When we get and tap into that connection, we are tapped into it all. So why is this important to us in our everyday life? Well, because like I was saying, the pursuits that we were set up and we were encouraged to follow were the pursuits of those external markers of success, those things that we thought we needed to go after to feel good about ourselves, to feel connected to society as a great citizen of society, to feel really just at the very base seen, heard, recognized, which is what all of us humans want. We want that sense of belonging by other people recognizing our belonging, that, oh, you're meant to be here in this tribe. You're meant to be here in this group fraternity, sorority, or a corporation, or political affiliation, or whatever it is. And the problem with that, because the fact that we want to be connected and belong with one another, there's no problem with that. But the problem with us finding our value, worth, and our sense of self through that's where the problem is. We already are whole. We already are connected to the oneness, and then therefore to everyone. We already are of value, worth, because we're love. We are the fullness of all of that without someone saying, hey, you belong, without a job title or career or certain socioeconomic class to tell you that you're worthy of this belonging, without any of the degrees and the certifications and the titles that somehow give you a sense that you can walk through that door, or that this path is for you. All paths are for us. You get to decide where you want to spend your energy. Is it going to be in the pursuit of convincing others, society as a whole, certain people, certain groups? You're going to spend your energy convincing them that you are worthy, that you have value, that you're meant to be here. This mystical spiritual path isn't just to feel good, it's to understand who we really are, that we inherently are whole, that we are that oneness and that connection to the divine, and therefore do not need a single bit of validation or recognition from anyone else outside of the feeling and the connection that we have with that oneness, with that wholeness, with the divine, you could say. Even for those of you who don't believe, okay, in souls or in God, or that there is the surroundingness of this oneness, or that we're an energy that connects to all things, even if you don't believe that, and just the acceptance that you're whole, you were born into this lifetime. And even that simple biology, which is not simple at all, right? You're a miracle. You're a miracle of life. So if that's all you want to believe, that you're just a miracle of life, you made it here, you're listening to this podcast, you are in this current incarnation. Even if that's all you want to believe, you're still a miracle. The fact that you're here is incredible. So what are you going to do with that life? What are you going to do with that knowledge, and also that responsibility to yourself and maybe even to others to live into that miracle? That you came here, that you arrived. That enough means you belong. That enough means that you are worthy, have value enough for us to sit here in awe of you, and for us to recognize that in each other, and to be in awe of one another as miracles of life. And if you're like me and believe that we're a spiritual person as well as a body mind person, that we carry, or that we are a soul, maybe carrying our body, however we want to look at it. If you believe in that as well, then your soul is on a much bigger mission than this current lifetime, than the problems, traumas, issues of this current lifetime. And when you really start to understand that aspect of self, that our highest self is actually here to learn from all of that, to grow from all of that, to expand from all of that, then we can see those things as a gift of this lifetime. We can see each and every one of those traumas, problems, issues, whatever, name it. We can look at all of those things as initiations in this life for us to evolve from. And again, you don't have to believe in your soul being on a mission and a journey bigger than you in this lifetime. Even just seeing those things as gifts will change the mindset you have of yourself from being a victim of those circumstances to being empowered by those circumstances. Because if you look at really most of your personality traits, the ones that we would deem positive, the positive personality traits as well as the negative ones, those are a product of your environment. Now, I know there's a lot of discussion, argument, whatever you want to say about the nature nurture, how much is genetic, how much is a product of your environment. I can tell you that having been born in another country, adopted into a different family, and grown up the way that I did, that I am almost 100% a product of my environment. I've spent many time with Korean people. I've been to South Korea and spent time there. And I am very, very different from that culture, from those people. I mean, it's hard for me to even call them my people, even though, yes, I am and have Korean DNA and ancestry, and that's my heritage. There are connections, there are things that are very real about that connection from a biological standpoint. But then most of who I am, how I show up, how I speak, how I dress, how I think, what I deem as culturally appropriate versus not, all of those things that really, if you were to create that list of personality characteristics and traits, all come from my environment, good and bad. The things that I have created as coping mechanisms that have turned into ways of being successful in the world, potentially from a negative circumstance in my life, are as important as the things that came from a place of nurturing and guidance and then became a positive trait. I see them all as positive. I see every circumstance that's happened as positive. And because I see it that way, it is. So this is where we start to get into our and delve deeper into our own mindset. I believe it starts by that recognition of ourselves as not only body, mind, but as spirit. And where can that spirit take us? That spirit takes us out into these other realms of understanding. It connects us to the knowing of ourselves as a soul so that we can then have even more. I don't want to call it control because that sounds like, we're pulling on or fighting with something else, but it really just a different experience of life. It's an experience of life that has less boundaries. We still have, well, I was about to say no boundaries, but we still have the boundaries of our human body and our humanness. We're here in this construct. So we've got some boundaries here, but we have so fewer boundaries than we think we have. We are so much more than we think we are. Expansive in our own being. By understanding ourselves as body, mind, spirit, and working more deeply with that in the connection, the reconnection of those things with this assurance and this knowing that we're this soul on this journey, again, untethered to this human form. And we're out there having also this experience among the places that souls travel through. Bringing it back to those of you who don't believe in souls or don't believe in our lifetime going beyond this lifetime, we still can work with our body, mind, spirit, that nature of ourselves as all three of these things, that we have both a body that operates from a biological standpoint, that we call our skin that we live in. We have the mind that's part of the body, that is what we think is controlling our body. And then we have the spirit, which both lives in and emanates from this body mind. So it's kind of looking at ourselves as more than just the cells, right? We are expanding out from that just mere cellular structure into the being that we are, the being that we show up in the world as. And the more that we understand that being and all the interconnectedness of those three things, the more we can live this life where we feel like we have more control, where we feel like we have more power, where we feel like we can generate and create and manifest the things that we want in our life. When we feel like we are choosing joy, happiness, whatever it is you want to choose, and then having that. When we get into this place, we are no longer a victim. Not only we're no longer a victim of our circumstances, meaning maybe how you were raised or your current circumstances of where you are right now, but you're also no longer a victim to this human construct. All of the elements that impact you. Because not only within your environment as a child, not only is it family, but it's also the society, the culture you grew up in. What beliefs were programmed into you from that culture, from that society, from that time and place in which you grew up? All of those things can be examined. None of those things are static. And certainly, none of those things are yours unless you want them to be yours. You can decide, you know what, that belief is not in alignment with who I am now. Maybe I grew up in that belief, but no longer going to be my belief. Maybe I used to value certain things that I no longer find valuable because it doesn't align with my current values, which means that we are exploring what our values are, right? All of this is examination. It's all about not accepting life, your own life, or just life in general, at face value. When you do, then you're the victim, then you're the slave, then you are the, basically you're the battery. If you want to use the Matrix metaphor, you're that battery. You're not operating yourself here. Someone else is operating you. It's easy to be operated. It's easy to have been programmed and controlled by others, again, starting with parents, but also society and the overall culture that you grew up in. It happens certainly from the moment we arrive here, the moment we're born. But now, if you're listening to this and you're an adult, now you have full sovereignty, full capacity. You have everything you need to make the decision or not to believe the things that you believed in once or not, to accept the values that you lived under before or not, to change those values, to create new beliefs, to create new behaviors, to think differently, to feel differently, to actually even change some of the past by rethinking it, going, That thing really used to bother me. That thing used to control me. That thing used to be all I ever thought about. That thing made me into who I am. It's the power we give to that thing that makes you who you are. It's not the thing itself. It's not that experience or circumstance or person or people or society that makes us who we are. It is our choice whether or not we want to respond in any particular way to those things. Do we want to accept it? Do we want to accept the program? Or do we want to not? It's that simple. We don't have to fight against it. We don't have to battle it. We don't have to denounce it. We don't have to go through all this dramatic stuff. We can just say, oh, yeah, I don't accept that program because it doesn't align with who I am and my own beliefs and my own values and my own understanding of myself as a sovereign soul being here who doesn't need anybody else's permission to be here, doesn't need anybody else's permission to walk a certain path or to live a certain life. This is, for me, the path of spirituality and the mystic path, because it's our own divine connection to all that is, without any gatekeepers, without any systems of control, without any hoops to jump through. It just simply is. You simply are. We all are. And we all have this beautiful opportunity to step into that. Once you accept it, then there's a process of re-accepting it because knowing it is one thing, but then integrating it into every cell, every inch, every bit of your body, mind, spirit takes time. Because think about how long the process was of programming you into who you are now. The person who's sitting in the chair or laying in the hammock or walking along a path as you listen to this. The person you are now, that was constructed over many decades. I'm not saying it's going to take you decades to get into full flow and acceptance of yourself as a soul or into full sovereignty, but it does take time and it takes practice. It takes the practicing of yourself as a sovereign soul who, again, doesn't need permission, acceptance, validation from anybody, who just can be, simply be, and allow others to simply be. Okay, so now this doesn't mean that we just accept the way that anybody wants to treat us or that may have a negative impact on us, but it means that we get to examine the impact. Is this something that is our own thing, or is it their thing that they're just sharing and that we are sort of getting to choose whether we're going to have a response over or not? We can choose to respond any certain way or just simply choose not to respond. Our choices are endless. We are in this state of really infinite possibilities of which way we're going to go, how we're going to think, feel, and act in every single moment. The everyday mystic is this way for us to reconnect to all of that wisdom and knowledge. It's how we came here. It's what we came with. There's just most likely been this systematic covering up of that knowledge. So it's not that you aren't whole, that you're broken and you need fixing, or that you are lost and confused. It's that you've been shrouded by a different understanding, a different knowing that isn't necessarily in alignment with your own. So if this resonates with you and you feel like, oh yeah, I don't quite feel like the way that I am, the beliefs that I have, the things that I've been living, the values that I've been kind of espousing, those things don't quite feel right for me, then that's your opening. That's your time for you to look at and start to question those things. It doesn't have to happen with, like I said, a battle or a war or a denouncement. And in this dramatic way, it can simply happen by a questioning and a curiosity that guides you to the answers from within, from inside your own knowing. A knowing, of course, yes, it's hard to tell sometimes if that's the influence of everything we've learned here in this lifetime, but you'll start to feel the difference of going from ego mind or that what has been kind of given to you to think in this lifetime because you feel it in happening in your mind. And then there's the knowing that you feel deeper in your body, either from your heart or your gut. This knowing that comes from a different place. It's a knowing that just feels unquestionable. And it also comes sometimes in a different way where it's not a thought. It comes as a visual or it comes like you hear it and you go, oh, okay, I just heard something. You're not crazy. You're just tapping in to the communication, the voice of your soul. And that knowing and that information also might come from other people out here. Whispers, uh, actual communication and conversations that you overhear or direct to you from someone you know. That information, that guidance from others is another thing that's that if it resonates within, then most likely it's a message for you from your soul for you to pay attention to. Accidents, injuries in the body, illnesses, these are also signal signs, information for you. So are your emotions. As you feel more deeply into yourself and you experience your feelings more deeply, those are indicators as well. And information from your soul. Hey, you're on the right track. Oh, I feel joy and giddy and happy and excited. Or why am I so depressed? Why am I so confused and worried about life? Well, these feelings, again, are indications from your soul to tune in and listen more deeply and understand that maybe this, whatever certain circumstances you're in right now, are not for you. We get to examine all of this in this life. And that's what the everyday mystic life is about. It's that examination. It's that celebration. It is the acceptance of ourselves and not necessarily the programs that were given to us. We get to look at all of that and decide what's right for us, what's ours, what's someone else's, what is something that I'm going to live by versus witness. The Everyday Mystic podcast, which you're tuning into right now, is just one way of connecting. But all of the guests that I bring on are people who can also take you deeper. If you like what they have to say, if you like their, you just connect and resonate. You feel again that connection within that is unquestionable. Like, oh, I don't know why I feel so connected to this person. Well, if you don't know why, that's your mind saying you don't know why. You can trust your intuition, which is your soul's language, to follow that thread. Contact that person. If you need help getting in touch with them, let me know. but contact them and see, is this a teacher for you? Is this a guide for me? Is this just an angel messenger who's going to, give me some quick bits of wisdom and then we move on? They all have ways of connecting with you, as well as some of them have programs and actual, deeper dives. I hope that when you listen to an episode that you feel inspired to take some action in your life. Because it's one thing to accept yourself as soul. Like I said, it's the practice of getting into that rhythm of ourselves as soul. And remembering and constantly reminding ourselves, this is who I am. This is who I really am. This is what I'm here for. Myself, my guests, countless people around you can help guide you in that process. Be those reflections and those projections and those teachers and those guides for you along your journey. And we're all that for one another. If you want to learn more about the Everyday Mystic and just join our community, go to the Instagram at the Everyday Mystic. You can follow along and connect to myself and to guests, as well as share your own voice, share your story, share who you are there. And you can do that by DMing me, and we can then potentially get into a podcast conversation, or I can connect you to someone who you might be interested in connecting with so that you can go deeper. You can connect more to who you really are and to the divine. Thank you all for listening. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.